Double checking. All right, almost there. All right, we are good to go. So I will let Leah take it away.
Thanks, Katie.
There we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Letting Go with Guy Finley class. We're really glad you're here. My name is Leah. I will be the host for this afternoon's class. And we have a few changes since we all met live last time. Guy is officially a resident now of Florida. So you'll see Guy is now permanently joining us from Florida, unless he comes and visits us, which I'm sure he'll do shortly. And we also have a room full of students here in Southern Oregon that are in a room next to me. And we're all looking forward to today's talk. So the new chapter has officially begun, and we look forward to seeing where the road leads. So we're glad you're here to join us along that road. And if you are new to our class, if this is your first time, our format is Guy will give about a 1-hour talk. We'll take a short break. I'll have 1 or 2 announcements, and then we come back for the Q&A part of our discussion. And this is your opportunity to speak live with Guy. So you can either write a question, or if you're on GoToWebinar, you can come in and have a live discussion with Guy. So we'll get you more information on that when the time comes. And in the meantime, if you have any technical questions or problems, overall questions, you can always write those in the comment section, chat area of whatever platform you're watching us on. And there's folks behind the scenes monitoring all that from behind. So we have you covered, and we look forward to interaction along the way. So I think all that said, we can go ahead and get started. Guy, you want me to read the title and the key lesson?
Yes, please, Leah.
Okay, here we go. Go beyond solving painful problems to live a life free of stress and sorrow. The key lesson reads, there's no such thing as having a bad day, only our present inability to see the good in it. All right, Guy, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm glad, as always, to have the time that we do together. So I want to jump right in because we have some important material that needs, as always, to be stitched together. Not that it isn't already seamless in the real world, but in our interior life, it is not seamless. So we have to grab a piece, a little bit of an understanding, and put it somewhere within ourselves where it can begin to grow and develop on its own and take us with it. I don't think I've ever done that. Anyway, what if it's true? What if there is no such thing as a bad day, only our inability to see the good in it? I want to stress at the outset that that is absolutely the truth. That there is indeed a good with a capital G that transcends any particular condition that may seem to prove otherwise. Because within that condition, had we eyes to see, and that's what we're going to learn about, we would be able to glimpse a certain truth. And that is that long before we go looking for help, we are already embedded, and already embedded within us is a nature that doesn't have to solve problems because it is problem-free to begin with. Nothing that happens within its light changes the light that reveals, if you will, the nature that is and constantly transcending whatever creation may present. We've all heard the old adage, God helps those who help themselves. And it may be something that we've thrown out from time to time amongst ourselves, or a thought has passed through our mind. But key here to initiating our study is this understanding that our best efforts, and by the way, nothing I say you should believe, you should examine through the light of your own experience. Never believe a word that I say. But we can see that our best efforts to resolve our suffering, to attract what we would call divine help, that in spite of those best efforts, we have not entered into a help that is there before we realize that we're stranded, sunk. And the mindset that God helps those who help themselves falls into a mind that looks at that statement and thinks to itself, all right, well, here's my best efforts. I'm going to go and straighten this person out. God will help me. I'm going to go back into the past. I'm going to resolve this problem. God will help me, because God helps those who help themselves. And I'm helping myself to do it. But the proof is in the pudding, if you will, that those efforts at best bring us some temporary resolution to the problem, and we find out that that didn't last. So we need a new kind of effort. Not efforts based on our old understanding, but an effort based in a new understanding, which is what the purpose of all truthful teachings is intended to convey. To awaken within the individual aspiring to a life where a light goes before them to make the crooked places straight, so that they don't have to spend their time, let alone let their mind wander through a minefield of endless thinking. How do I resolve this? Because once we understand that we need a new kind of effort, we can begin to understand that what we call right effort now is in the wrong order of things. We're going to look at this deeply together. The actual nature of divine help is never not in place. If we could bring up the key lesson from yesterday's Insight Timer, just to finally set the stage. And read along with me, please, everybody. It's so critical that we grasp the understanding inherent in this special key lesson, which I don't know if it's up for you, but I see the first, there it is. Doing the right thing in the right way begins with seeing the right order of things. It just can't be stressed strongly enough. The inner determines the outer. All of life's lessons point us toward this simple celestial truth about the right order of things. Through the pain of our missteps, our mistakes, we're gradually awakened, if you will, shocked, to gradually to discover what has always been right in front of our eyes, but we couldn't see it. And what's right before our eyes that we can't see? Whenever things are out of order within us, our choices and actions must follow. Doing is downstream from being. And when doing is downstream from being, and the being is misunderstanding the situation, then the actions produce sorrow, conflict. That's the inevitable result of living from a nature that has established a kingdom according to its best idea, when that kingdom itself is out of order with the broader kingdom, the broader order of life itself. Thanks, we can take that down. So how do we look at this idea that right order starts with right understanding, and right understanding leads us to the part of ourself that is already in line with that which transforms, transcends, and ultimately triumphs over the worst possible circumstances? Have you not in your life, at some point, and I don't know when it's reached, maybe you said it out loud, maybe you didn't. But if you're an aspirant, at some point in one way or another, you've said, God help me. I know any form of addiction if a person actually begins to struggle with it, they start to realize they're powerless. And at that point, the whole idea of a power greater than themselves, something that can come in and produce a different result than resisting and hating and judging oneself, or even worse, excusing ourselves for the things that we do against ourselves, blaming others for our weakness. Nothing's worse, and nothing will keep away from a human being the help that they need so much as making excuses for what we do to ourselves. God help me. And so far, so good. Nothing wrong with that at all. But then we must see something we don't see presently. We say, God help me, but then we don't wait for that help. God help me, and then we tell ourselves, we listen to literally a legion of different thoughts and feelings that appear magically to resolve a condition that now they can fix. And those thoughts and feelings tell us where to find the help we need. And without knowing it, then we are disconnected from the real order of life, which began with realizing I need help. I can become a maniac. Nobody sees it because I've learned to control my cool. I'm actually able to pretend like everything is well, but inwardly I'm seething. And at a certain point when that reaches a zenith, please, God, help me. But then we acquiesce to the nature responsible for the suffering that we're asking God to help us with. And in that moment, when we turn to our own thoughts and our own feelings, because, by the way, that's all we know at this moment, we literally enter into a place that God cannot reach, let alone give us the help that we've asked for. I'm going to say it again. That when we turn to our own thoughts, let our reactions rule us and tell us how we can be delivered from whatever that darkness is that we seem to have come to us without our willingness. That moment, when we start guiding ourselves, we have entered into a place that God can't reach. And it isn't that God isn't there. It isn't that this light, this wisdom, the living Christ, call it what you will. It's not that it's never not there. It always is. But we have entered into a world where nothing can come into it because we are so thoroughly identified, meaning separated from, blocked away out of that light. It's there. We just don't see it because we're too taken up with our own thoughts and feelings about how to save ourselves. Now let's see if that's true. Follow me. When do you start looking for solutions to suffering, to pain, to regret? When do you start looking for them? And the short answer is, because you may not know, the short answer is because something in the world seemingly outside of you has triggered a series, or at first just a reaction that turns into a series of thoughts. And the next thing I know, I'm being besieged by bitterness, besieged by regrets, anger. And all I know to do in that moment is take what seems to be producing this pain, identify its source according to my own reactions telling me what's happening, and then I set out for a solution. So the answer I'm asking is, the search for solutions begins in the moment of conflict. We think the moment of conflict is with the world outside of us challenging who and what we are, but that is not the moment of conflict. The moment of conflict is when some condition in the real world challenges an image that we have of ourselves, and that conflict is between this nature clinging to this image, insisting that it's true, and then fighting with the world that it has defined, saying, there's the problem, I'm the victim. Not true. We are, without knowing it, a constant victim of a divided, conflicted nature that is forever imagining into existence its powers and pleasures and then struggling to protect itself from whatever threatens that identity. So here's this me, I'm fine. When I'm having a nice meal with a friend, enjoying a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, I'm not looking for, who looks for solutions when they're happy? We don't look for solutions when we're at peace. You don't look for a way to feel better about yourself when you're eating. The eating is making you feel better, and usually, by the way, it's one of the ways in which one of these false ways to resolve our pain is through these things that we do to give ourselves pleasure to escape a pain we don't want to know exists within us. An example, you're with some friends, maybe a family gathering. We've all know this happens, and someone makes some kind of passive-aggressive comment. There I am, I'm okay. I'm thinking about the people at the table, maybe quietly judging them or myself, wondering why I can't, whatever. And then boom, whatever pleasure I had turns to pain. That person has said something, acted in a way that I cannot bear. And in that moment, when our joy is ruined, in quotes, we immediately want to know how to resolve whatever that pain is that we're blaming on the circumstance or the person outside of us. You don't have to be a genius to see this. It happens virtually all day long. We don't have to be with people to be in the midst of our own thoughts and feelings, making their own passive-aggressive comments. What do you think a judgment is? It's a passive-aggressive comment on your character. And who's judging you when you're listening to yourself, judging yourself? So the bottom line is that for us in these moments, the order of things are he, she, this, that, out there needs to be fixed. And here's where I really need you to just listen. Because you need to see the truth of this, not because I say it's true. We are not created to resolve our own suffering. We are not created to resolve our own suffering. Now, I'm not talking about if you have some physical sickness, you can take the proper steps, practical steps, that lead to you realizing an imbalance in your chemistry so that you take the proper proactive steps to change your diet, whatever that may be, so that in the new relationship to a new set of thoughts and feelings about nourishment, we begin proactively to resolve the suffering born of our ignorance, because that's where all suffering starts, even physical suffering, is with refusing the evidence of a will within us that's acting according to what it wants and says it has to have. Now, how do we know that it's true, that we're not created to resolve our own suffering? Please don't throw this away. Because experience proves that when outer conditions that we've struggled to change, and that's what we do, you give that person that certain look because they said something to you. You listen to the news and you're filled with, you're irate because whatever it is, and you're going to go check, whatever. Here I am, and whatever it is that I believe and then struggle to change, no one's saying we don't do that. That struggle to change the world, my friends, my family, myself, changes nothing. And how do we know that it changes nothing? This is where you have to be honest. Because the momentary freedom that we experience, and we do, I get you to say you're sorry. The girlfriend, the boyfriend that left me, they come back. Like I hope they would. They say, God, I can't live without you. And in that moment, all the things that we said and done, oh, you know what? I knew it. But the conditions that first created the conflict change even after we've changed the conditions we blamed for them. So that on our own accord, this momentary freedom that we thought we had won, the problem went away. That momentary freedom disappears the instant the changes come through new conditions. And there are always new conditions. And when the conditions change, the consciousness is thrown back on itself again, and all it knows to do is to resist and reject and go through the old pain again, so that the nature remains in place, but the negative conditions we blame our pain on, we can change those all day long. The freedom we thought we won, gone. What appears is the awareness, if we're willing to see it, that yes, we changed the conditions. I struggled, I suffered to change where I live, what I make, what I do. But the nature that creates those conditions hasn't changed. And it's clear that it hasn't changed because I'm right back experiencing the same pain again, only with different people and in different places. So that we have all seen, and I mean time and time again, that when we resolve these problems, what we call the resolution of our pain is merely a postponement of it. Kicking the proverbial can down the road. And I don't know why it takes so long to realize that that's all I've done. I bullied you into being a different person. And you actually begin to act out being a different person, but you haven't changed, and that's evident. And the nature that bullies another person, just because it gets the power it assumes it must have to be at peace, it doesn't change that nature. If anything, it strengthens in that nature the belief that it has the power to change what causes it to suffer. And so, because we don't see it, this cycle of suffering just goes on and on and on. Blaming people, conditions, making excuses, endless excuses. So to be clear, obviously we can solve temporary physical problems. No one's saying don't do that. But what I am saying is that nothing we do to change the temporary conditions that create this sense of conflict with life changes the nature that keeps reacting the way it does, so that in each new reaction, the reiteration, literally the reincarnation of a legion of thoughts and feelings of an unconscious nature that is hidden, and then does what? If you can see it, it comes up with a new resolution. This is why resolutions fail, in case you haven't noticed it. And even when we succeed with some New Year's resolution, whatever that conflict was that was driving us to try to come to some new way, it didn't go away. It just found something else. See it or you don't. Human laws exist to resolve conflict created by human nature. Human laws exist to resolve conflict caused by, created by human nature. Some would say that this is part of why Christ came, because Mosaic law was perfect. But there was an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth. There was no love. There was no understanding the other person. There was the superior sense of self that I know you don't. And when you don't, you will be punished because you're not living up to the law. And so the lawgivers themselves were punished by their own laws because they couldn't live up to their own laws. It's a whole other story. Haven't you ever wondered why the Ten Commandments were written in the negative? Thou shalt not, thou shalt not. Because the intelligence behind those 10 commandments understood human beings, they're going to say, okay, I shouldn't be this way, I shouldn't do these things, and they're still going to do them. Only now they have to pretend that they haven't done them, and they have to struggle to resolve a conflict that's in their own nature by trying to take control of the circumstances around them through new laws, new morality. So resolutions cannot bring peace to an unconscious nature that creates conflict. Yes, we sit down and we try to resolve our differences. You should know this. When two people sit down to resolve their differences, they may come to some deal. They may negotiate a peace between them. But both people leave that table, that husband, that wife, that brother, that sister, the boss, they leave that table where things were resolved, each of them filled with resentment because the conflict that produced the need to sit down and find some kind of peace remains within them. And eventually, and we also know this is true, resentment bubbles up. But we're so asleep, we don't even know that it's resentment, because when we're resenting someone because of what we said we would do that we didn't want to, we believe the resentment proves we're right for blaming them for our pain. Resentment just proves ignorance. It proves that we are in the wrong order at the wrong time doing the wrong thing, because we don't understand that until we do something completely different, we're always going to find ways, and we have to, I guess. I mean, you turn on the news. Who can keep watching the news? I'm 76 years old. I've been watching the same broadcast since I was a boy. What's the broadcast? News people promising one way or the other that someone or something is going to resolve the pain and the injustice in the world. You just have to stay tuned because it's coming soon. And we swallow it lock, stock, and barrel, because that's where our hopes lie, is in a time to come when at last the problems that we face individually or collectively will be resolved, because somehow or other we're going to make a law. Somehow or other we're going to do something as a group. You do something as a group. Do you not see how increasingly fragmented everything is in this world? And that the greater the fragmentation, the greater the hostility? And the hostility blames each group, so that the more divided humanity becomes, the greater the justification for excusing the hostility. It's madness if you can see it, but most of us can't, because we're participants first in an unconscious nature that then expresses itself and manifests itself in this world that we look around and say, well, we have to get that resolved. Resolution is not the solution to your suffering. There's another solution, and we're trying to get to it. So what happens? At a certain point in life, and it happens to everybody, including perhaps the most sincere aspirants, they keep going through the same iteration, the same order: shock, resistance, struggle to change what is blamed, momentary control or not, only to come back round again and under different conditions face the same resistance, the same nature. What is the solution? Let's bring up the second key lesson before we go deeper. Read along with me. We're looking for something that isn't the resolution, but that which changes the nature responsible for that conflict. Only love heals. All other ambitions to free ourselves, to secure some form of imagined peace, are the work of an unseen, deeply conflicted level of self, forever searching for but never finding what only love can grant: wholeness. Only love heals. But shocking as it needs to be is that what we call love can't be love. Because if love was in fact what we were in relationship with, if the right order of things is that we understood that only love can transcend the conflicted nature and transform it, then we wouldn't have to keep saying to one another after we've hurt the other person, I love you, I'm sorry. Oh my God, I don't know, when do we get tired of saying I'm sorry? Because it doesn't change anything. It's the way in which this nature excuses itself for what it can't command in itself. So that it says, I'm sorry, because that's the way in which it resolves what it sees is the problem between you and that person or that circumstance. The devil made me do it. So until we start gathering this idea and have clarity, we can't begin to understand. The resolution of conflict is not enough. I know. I don't know what else to do. I work with somebody and I do my best to get along. I talk to myself endlessly about how to resolve this stress that I feel when I'm with my family. And my mind is never not working on resolving things. What do you think all of this thinking is about? All thought is the way in which this mind, unable to resolve what it seeks to get to find peace, realizing it has to go back into the archive and dig up something else. And just on it goes. You lay in bed at night. What do you think your mind is working on? Everything it couldn't resolve yesterday. And it's seeking a resolution tomorrow. And if it can't find a resolution tomorrow, then it'll start blaming and finding peace through separating itself from everyone and everything says it's making it suffer. Resolution addresses a problem. Resolution resolves a dispute between what? Divergent opinions, between opposing wills. You're in a business, you have partners. He wants to go this way, she wants to go that way. You have to resolve that conflict by finding something that you might, God willing, call a golden mean. This is what we'll do because it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then you make adjustments. So resolutions always have adjustments in them. We can resolve. I know most of you, at least who've been studying with me, I resolve. I'm going to be patient. Have you not resolved to be kind? Because you've seen yourself be as cruel as a person can be? They may not have known it, but you saw it. I resolved to be relaxed. I'm going to be relaxed. Relax. And suddenly I find myself, my jaw's clenched, my fists are tight. My resolutions do nothing. Why? Because identifying with a resolution is not being released from the consciousness that keeps making them. So what happens is when the pain gets too great, and this is important to understand for all of us, at a certain point, no matter what you've resolved, the pain will reach a certain pitch, and when it reaches that pitch, all bets are off. I want to be a right person, but at a certain point, when you're wrong, when they're so wrong, I've got no choice but to acquiesce, to anger, to blame, and then find some way to justify, to excuse what's tearing me up by pointing to what you've done that I blame for it. Is that not true? The best plans of men and mice, boom. Because what am I acquiescing to when the pain gets that great? Please see this. When the pain reaches that pitch, who's causing that pain? God isn't causing that pain. That pain is being produced by the very nature that first set out and identified with an image of what I was going to do and be. And then when conditions got too great for me to carry that image into battle, that banner, down it goes, and I'm at war. And I'm at war with what I think is ruining my life, failing to see that my life is already wrecked because I'm living from a nature that just repeats itself and then finds reasons for why it is the way it is. I trust you're following me. So, Nice deep breath. Conflict resolution postpones war. But war is inevitable, isn't it? Why has there always been war on this planet? Always. We say because of evil people. Well, those people are just like you and I. I want what I want. You want what you want. Personally, planetarily. Nation wants what nation wants. And of course, what nations wants is determined by the people in charge of it that we thought would resolve the problems, so we put them in office, and we find out no one resolves these problems. They just perpetuate them under the guise of a new set of laws that's going to eventually resolve all these problems. It never does. What's the solution? What's the real solution if it's not this constant resolution that we look to? Quick story. Help set the stage. So here's a group of, 7, 10, 12 men and women on a fabulous yacht. Storm comes, the yacht runs aground on some reef that the captain didn't know was there. Ship goes down. The fortunate ones make it to the shore. And our story picks up where this small group of travelers is stranded on some deserted island. Maybe a whole week, 10 days has gone by. And they're sitting on stumps or in the sand, and their clothes are starting to get tattered. They look like hell because nobody wants to go and do the work to find water. So they're all sitting around, whatever they're sitting around, a campfire if they could get one started. And what are they doing? You know this is true. They're arguing with each other. They're complaining about their circumstances. Why me? And anytime we ask, why me? Why am I in this situation? All I can come up with is reasonable complaints about how I got there. The captain was an idiot. That weather, why did that weather have to turn like this? Endless excuses for having and continually losing their cool, jumping on each other, blaming each other, hating each other, violence coming up. Everyone else is responsible for their misery. But then, one of the persons in this party, will call him Bill. Bill looks around and he doesn't know how he missed it before, but one of the party is missing. And the one who's missing is Claire. And he says to the others, do you see Claire? Where's Claire? Nobody cares. They're too busy resenting their circumstances and hoping somehow or other that someone's going to come rescue them. I mean, just for a moment, I know it's hard to swallow. What if you understood factually that you're waiting for someone to come rescue you, and the one that you're waiting to come rescue you is a thought about what that rescue would constitute and how it will be affected? It's that distinct when you see it. So Sam, he's worried. He has compassion. He goes looking for Claire. And he walks all the way around the island and finally comes to the other side. And there on the other side of the island, which by the way, doesn't have the reefs creating these big waves, doesn't have the intense winds coming from the onshore flow, there in the midst of it is Claire. And he can see from a distance she's hard at work. And the closer he gets, the more confusing it becomes. She's dragging palm leaves, picking up coconuts, taking rocks, picking all kinds of stuff up, and seemingly using it for something that he can't make out. And then he sees what looks like Claire is doing moonwalking. You know what moonwalking is? If you don't, when you walk backwards, then that's what he sees. And when he gets close enough, he goes, Claire, hi, what are you doing? Because he's standing above her. And she says, I'm spelling out in letters as big as I can make them one word. He still can't see. Well, what word are you trying to spell out? She said, help. I'm spelling out help. Because we're not going to get ourselves off of this island. Because we're not going to be able to rescue ourselves. We need help. There must be an intervention of some kind. That was clear to her. And even more important, it was clear to her that all of the excuse making, complaining, the spending time in dreams. I don't know if you're aware of what people do in these circumstances, but if you want to, just see what happens when you feel isolated. Help. So we asked at the start of this talk, what's required of us to realize, to actualize this timeless and true idea that God helps those who help themselves. But now not forgetting that resolutions to help ourselves don't help us at all, because they don't change the nature responsible for the conflict that we find ourselves in. So if God helps those who help themselves, and it requires a new understanding and a new kind of effort, what is the new understanding? And what new effort does it give rise to, assuming you're following me? Here is the true path to actually solving problems before they begin, because you're no longer manifesting the nature that creates them. What we need, but don't understand yet, let alone how to, I use the word carefully, achieve it. What we need is reconciliation, not resolution, not resolving issues. We need reconciliation, which means what? In nature, try to see as above, so below. In nature, there is not one creature, one creation that isn't in perfect reconciliation and perfectly reconciling the will of what created it to the world in which that creation lives. No tree rejects the light. No small creature in a bay rejects the movement of the tide. Everything moves according to a will that brings out of that creature what that creature is asked to do and be according to what is acting on it, so that everything is reconciled. That's what it means. The idea that I am the vine and you are the branches. The branch is reconciled to the will of the vine. And without the will of the vine, the branch can't be fruitful. Without the will of nature, which is itself a branch of the divine, nothing in nature would be reconciled. There'd be chaos. Nature has no chaos in it that doesn't foment and help create something new and better than the moment that creature was in before. So reconciliation in this means that you and I need to recognize that there is this greater order of things. There is, in fact, a ceaseless reconciliation of heaven and earth. But we're outside of it, meaning we are not capable of recognizing it, because we're thinking in terms of resolving our pain, not in terms of reconciling the nature that creates it to a living light and intelligence that would cause it to go through a transformation so that it was no longer out of order, but rather it would be part of this higher order. Reconciliation. Resolutions can bring a temporary end to hostility, but reconciliation restores a harmony that has been lost. It is a reconnection with something celestial and divine that by its nature doesn't have a problem, because what is reconciled is constantly being reborn. You want to know what rebirth is? Rebirth is what happens when a man or a woman, when their will is reconciled to the greater good that has given them their life, because they are being made new. Everything in nature is made new. We don't see it. You look out at a tree and then one day you go, gee, that tree grew. Well, when did it grow? It never stopped growing. When did that bush die? It never stopped dying. Because in the beginning, its cycle is up. In the end, its cycle is down. But when you add both cycles, you just have the reconciliation of a greater order acting on a lesser order to bring it into what is orderly, true, and everlasting. Are you getting the drift of this? Because I want to get into a close of this material so that we can understand one another in a way that hopefully will allow us to start, how shall I say, looking at our life through a completely new set of eyes. So let's go with this. Here's the best I know to do. The best overall definition of what we are saying is the solution to suffering, which is reconciliation. Reconciliation is the renewal of a relationship based on a new understanding of the totality of oneself. Reconciliation is the renewal of a relationship. Think of the prodigal son. Went out, resolved to become someone, to do something on his own. In the end, wound up eating husks or wishing he had the husks that pigs do. And he just realized, you know what, I shouldn't have left home. And even fearing that his father would reject him, if you know the story at all, he turns to go home. And in that moment, his father, miraculously seeing him at a great distance, meaning they were never separated, so that the will of the Father was never not acting on the will of the Son in that story, as it's true the will of the divine, the will of Christ never stops acting on creation to reconcile it to that greater will. So the Son turns around, he goes home, and he's reconciled. And not only is there reconciliation with the Father, but his Father gives him everything that the one who never left home then hates the Son, hates the one who did. So this new understanding, Christ called it metanoia. The new understanding is the foundation of a new relationship with the obvious existence of a higher will than our own. We forget all this. Look, I know you've had this experience. That's why I started the talk with that key lesson. What did it say? There's no such thing as having a bad day, only our present inability to see the good in it. How many times in your life, I know it's for me been endless, have you thought to yourself, this is the worst possible thing that could happen, and you summarily reject it and then resolve to find a way to get around whatever it is, and then push comes to shove, a day, a week, a year, 10 years later, you realize, oh my God, why didn't I see the lesson in it then? Because now I do. And the moment that I see the goodness of the lesson that I formerly rejected, in that moment, I'm reconciled to the whole of creation that brought about that lesson. And I see the good in it. And I'm reconciled on the spot to that will that I summarily rejected because it challenged my own. So that this gradual awakening is recognizing that, yes, not only is there a higher will than mine that I say I love on one hand, but man, when life seems to go against me, when everything goes south, higher will, schmeier will, I want nothing to do with this event because it's not good. How do I know? Because I know what's good. How do you know what's good? Because I resolved some time ago that I would get this or do that, and then I got a little bit of it, and I'm clinging to it like a shipwrecked person holding to a piece of wood. And gradually you recognize, you know what, this doesn't work. So there's never a moment in which this order of things, this divine order of things, this perfect act of revelation, of creation, and of our place in that ceaseless reconciliation that's never not happening. We're just outside of it. We just won't see it because it challenges the kingdom of what we call our life, ourselves. And it is to that will, how simple it is when it's understood. It is to that will that we must be reconciled. If we ever hope to be free of this conflicted nature that always finds a problem. I know you say, that's not true, Guy. I don't always find a problem. Push comes to shove. Is your life filled with the joy of revelation 24/7? Or are you mostly filled with wondering why things are that way and what you have to do to change them? Why am I experiencing this moment the way I'm experiencing it? Because I should not be having this experience. I don't deserve this. That's what we say. You are getting your just desserts because this nature has decided what's sweet, and what's happening isn't sweet. It's sour to its taste. But God is always sweet. The truth is always sweet. I know it's hard to understand. Yesterday I spoke of it. He prepareth a feast in the presence of my enemies. Not he prepares a defeat in the presence of my enemies, but a feast. So we begin to recognize that my problem with you is that you're not the way you're supposed to be. And so we're going to have to resolve what's wrong with you, because there's nothing wrong with me. My problem with the world, the pain I have, is that it's not the right world. So I'm going to become someone who's going to go out, and God help us, and even with the best intentions that, by the way, are the road to hell, because an intention is apart from reconciliation. When you are reconciled to what is good, you don't have to sit and decide what needs to happen tomorrow because you're too busy participating in what is good and perfect for you and everyone else in that exact same moment. The summation, and I think this is true in a number of different levels and in scriptures, the whole story led up to Christ saying, not my will, but thy will be done. Because everything brought him to that point, as did all of the teachings make it possible for a person to recognize, why would he agree to that? One day you will, forgive me for saying it like this, you will have to, I use this word carefully, struggle to understand this. Why would any human being agree to a suffering that in that suffering is the short-term pain, possibly the end of that individual, knowing as that person does only what the mind is saying about it, and that I must avoid this suffering at all costs. I don't deserve it. No, Christ said, not my will, but thy will be done. Let me translate that for you. What was he really saying? Not my order of life, Abba, Father, not my order of life, but rather my agreement to accept what I know is a greater order of life. The greater order of life that is your light that never passes. And it never passes. Why? Because I also have seen that it is always being renewed. And as that light and life are being renewed, so am I, if I am in alignment with all that is required for this reconciliation. What do you fight with? What do any of us fight with? This isn't supposed to be happening this way. Life can't happen in any other way than it does. But you believe that it can, because when it happens the way you don't want it to, we start making these resolutions. We're going to resolve this problem. Maybe that's why it takes millennia, what the world might call so many lifetimes. Maybe all of that time has to pass so that bit by bit we can gather these small impressions, where when the shock comes for the 100,000th time, instead of shunting it off, some bit of that awareness that it is brought up inside of us, suddenly it's there and I can see, God, I've been this person for 1,000 years. But now I know that I can no longer afford to be this person. Not because I want to give this person up, but because I see by the light of love, I see by the light of that moment, that the reason there's this pain is because I am disconnected from life. When the moment comes to reconcile the greater whole of which you and I are a part, nope. And you may wonder to yourself, how can somebody cutting me off in traffic bring about this moment of reconciliation? How can what he just said that was so cruel and condescending, how can me agreeing in that moment to enter into a reconciliation, listen, with a will that is revealing to me the fire and the fury of my own will? I will not be talked to like that. And then that same nature hides itself behind some smiling face or some passive-aggressive comment, or it waits like some eel in a cave someplace to come out in the right moment because the resentment is built and built and built until it's suddenly released. Who wants to live like that? If you don't want to live like that, then you need to really take to heart, at least consider what this means. If there's an exercise, it would be something along the lines of this. Before you start down that endless path of trying to resolve your problems, not speaking practically. You need a job? Good God, go get a job. But oh, not that job, because that job's below my station. You need to get right with somebody in your family. Don't try to think to yourself, how can you get them to see and understand you? Think, what is it that I don't understand about myself that's creating this conflict? Then you're in the right place, the right order, and doing the right thing. Because now you're looking within, which is where reconciliation begins. That's the right order of things. Look within. Look within at what? What you are being shown is true about you and the moment that you're in. They are inseparable. What is true is that the inner determines the outer, and the reconciliation is not one overpowering the other. Not this life greater than I am and me having to, oh, no, and not me that won't let life do that. That's all nonsense. That's conflict. But rather the reconciliation of heaven and earth, of the will of heaven upon the will of earth. So that by the light that is enjoined and brought up in those moments when these energies meet, suddenly I can see it. The answer to this problem is to lay down the one who insists it's a problem. Because if I stop insisting it's a problem, what you said, what they did, what I'm feeling inside, if I stop resisting this, then I begin to assist in the reconciliation of myself to heaven, of this consciousness, which is myself. And then stay there, realizing, like Claire, help. And then don't tell yourself what that help is. Don't let your imagination run into some relationship with whatever that religious icon may be that you're going to draw consolation from. Then you're helping yourself to the same mind and the same sense of self that created the suffering to begin with. Stay there with the understanding that I need help, because that understanding is a silent asking that you will always receive help from. Then the rest is done, and you get to see that. And you know why the rest is done? It's not done in time. It's done because it is unfolding within you. You are the ground, the light, and what is being revealed through their relationship. And you just need to see that and stay with it. And as you do, you will see freedom isn't coming. freedom is being part of that revelation that is inseparable from true reconciliation. We'll pause here. Use the facility if you need to. Get a glass of water. We'll come back and we'll have our dialogue. I'll ask Leah, there she is, to come on and get us at least squared away with some announcements, and then we'll get into our dialogue.
Very good. Okay, don't go far because we're going to get started again here quickly. For those of you on GoToWebinar, if you'd like to speak with Guy directly, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll be able to hear you and you can have a conversation with Guy, which is always special. And for those of you that are on another platform and would like to speak with Guy directly, you can go to guyfinley.org/free class. And once you get registered there, you will be in the GoToWebinar platform and you can speak with Guy as well. If you just want to ask a question, go ahead and do that in the comment area, the chat area on whatever platform you're on. And Kate's behind the scenes and she will send those messages over to Guy and I, and we can answer your questions that way as well. So, and then also students in the room over here next to me, you can always come in and come sit in the chair here next to the desk we have set up, and you can ask Guy a question. And I know that it's always, nice to have the face-to-face with Guy again. So let's take advantage of that as well as we start this new way of class. All right, so another announcement is we have a special gift as a thank you for a $10 donation to Life of Learning. So with your gift of, with your donation of $10, our gift to you is a 5-part talk that Guy did called Everything You Need to Know About Letting Go. The package is 5 parts. It's downloadable. You can see it's an MP3. There's written writings. And then we're also including in this 3 bonus talks from a weekend of wisdom that Guy did on letting go, the unlimited power of surrender as well. So you'll have instant access to all that as a thank you for your $10 donation. So we appreciate everything you can do. This allows us to keep these classes going and to keep all the work that goes on here behind the scenes and that you're able to take a part of going. So we appreciate anything you can do. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Guy, do you have anything you'd like to add before we get started with Q&A?
Nope.
Let's see what we have going here. All right, for any of you online, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll talk to Guy. And then I have Terry here. So let's go ahead and get started with Terry. And then we'll come back and do some questions or see who's raised their hand. We have one hand up. So here's Terry.
All right.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Terry.
Great talk. It's funny, I was just contemplating this very thing. My sister, I have a new relationship with my sister, thank goodness for that. And she had just made the comment about how she was going to have a discussion with her son because he was being a bad son. And of course, what we know is that what she's basically saying is, you're disturbing me. You're not going by the book that I have of what it means to be a good son. But I was looking at the conflict resolution that you just were sharing, like, here's 2 people, quote unquote, and they're having a discussion about something. And in those moments, those eyes, the identities, they may be amenable or agreeable to certain things, right? But then if that embedded belief is still there, then you can't say, yes, I agree that, because that I in the moment, yes, of course it might be amenable, but it's going to come out. It has to come out eventually to be seen. And so I could just see the whole talk was about this personal responsibility. It all comes down to me. It all comes down to the fact that I'm experiencing myself always. And that's the bottom line. So I just really loved, I loved every bit of it, including that, the story about the island and the help. So
two comments, Terry. First, if the son's being bad, if he's doing what is harmful or destructive, obviously it disturbs a person, but equally important is that it is the responsibility of the adult to sit down and, if you want to use the word, try to resolve whatever is creating this behavior in the child. But when all is said and done, and it's just this, if a person could, one day you'll see it. You won't think it. You'll actually participate. So here I am. I'm talking to my son. And I'm saying, look, what you're doing, can you not see it? If you can't see it's hurting you, it's hurting me. It's creating a problem for your mother and I, whatever it might be. Can I get my son to see a little bit of what's good instead of awakening resistance in him? Because if he can see a little bit of what's good and I can move a little bit towards what's good, then we have a movement of good towards good. Not eye to eye, but good to good. So that if we resolve that even though another eye will appear that wants nothing to do with what we agreed was good, then in that moment, there's a disparity that suddenly appears. And now I have a little bit of an insight into the fact, well, even if in the moment I'm doing it, I can't remember what good is, I can retrospectively remember I felt that good. I knew that this was the right thing to do. So that the good begins to be formulated through the reconciliation of what seems to be two separate people.
Right.
But it's really not two separate people. It's one consciousness in mom and in a kid. Mom has been through stuff the kid hasn't been through. Mom doesn't want the kid to go through it. Mom doesn't want to go through the kid going through it either. But this is the proper resolution between people is working towards what is good, not trying to get away from what we disagree about through our own means. So this is an important distinction to make, and that is the beginning of reconciliation. We want reconciliation with this light, with this Christ, with the divine that shows us, which is when Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the light. He was saying, I'm that which has come to show you why you need reconciliation with the Father. Because until you do, you're going to be this wreck that you are and always find reasons for being it.
No, that's right. Yeah. And there's a little bit more background on my sister. It doesn't matter. He's a grown man and she just wants more. She just wants more of him to help her, kind of thing. But yes, and I totally agree with everything that you said. Absolutely.
Yeah. Stay out of the stories. Stick with the insights.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Tara.
Okay, we have 3 hands up and 3 questions. So we're going to get started with Jill. Jill, you are unmuted.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Joe.
So I was going to say something else, but then Terry kind of sparked a memory. Yesterday I took my granddaughter out school shopping. She's 13.
Yeah.
So she's at a pivotal age of, I don't know, hormones. And she's very, very quiet. So, and I've taken her shopping before, and it's very difficult because she won't express what she wants,
right,
or she can't find what she wants.
Right.
And so I realized that I wanted to, because I could see that irritation coming up in me, and I thought, no, I'm not going along with this.
Right.
This is not helping her.
Correct.
And so eventually I, by a little bit of coaxing in a nice way, asked her, what do you want? What are you looking for? And we did end up buying some things, but then the clothes was a problem. And, but I found a resolution that worked for her rather than giving into that irritation, because her mom gives into the irritation. Oh no, she won't do this, blah, blah. And this work really helps me in every situation, just seeing what my nature wants to do in those kind of situations.
I would only add one comment to this, Jill, and it's this, that the deeper and the greater the reconciliation that we have with real life, with this living light, the more successful become our resolutions. Because now the resolution isn't to get you to be what I need you to be. The resolution is based on the fact that I know that if I resist and fight and try to make you what I need you to be, you're just going to do the same thing. And I wouldn't know it if I weren't reconciled to something that was showing me that in that moment. So vine becomes branch, branch becomes vine, and we become a conduit for what is kind and true as best we're able to be that expression. And then everything follows suit. So I just wanted to add that as an encouragement.
All right. Thank you, Jill. We're going to go to Eric and then Kim. Eric, you're unmuted.
Hi, Guy. Can you hear me?
I can.
There's been some words by Thoreau that I've been carrying around with me the past couple weeks. And I can't believe how almost precisely exact these few words are with your key lesson today. And I have to tell you, I had a feeling they would be.
I get it.
And it's so simple and succinct that it's kind of glossed over, because I know I've seen it before, and I've been like, oh, that's nice and beautiful and all that.
Right.
But I haven't really, well, anyway, here they are. He said, humility like darkness reveals the heavenly lights.
Say it again so everybody can hear it.
Humility like darkness reveals the heavenly lights. Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful, but also pretty much scorned by most of humanity. We just don't see the beautiful dynamic that exists between the action of the will of the divine as it reveals within us everything in this unconscious nature that's antithetical to its goodness. But it is somehow through the revelation of that antithetical, conflicted nature that we begin to see with humility, God, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. I've always thought I dealt with it, and I didn't. And my resolutions didn't release me. And Thoreau's simply saying, right, that the very thing that we shun is the very thing that we need to be reconciled to. So yeah,
Right.
Well said, Eric.
A little more, and
please.
I can't do it for myself, and I never would have. These conditions
Right,
that I've been placed in,
right.
and every condition is created for this very purpose.
100%. So there,
That's all I have.
hence the Thoreau quote and the opening quote about no such thing as having a bad day, only our inability to see the good in it. How I'm telling everyone not to believe me, but you can feel and know if it still lives in you, it's true. If God is good, and God is good, if God is great, and God is great, then how can God do anything but bring that into the world where, through the revelation of that greatness and goodness, we realize we are not apart from that. We've just been separated because we've been identified with a nature that wants its own kingdom instead of the interior one. On we go, Leah.
Okay, we have Kim in the queue. Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to speak to Guy directly. And then after this, we'll go to a few questions that were written in.
Okay.
Kim, you are unmuted. You'll have to unmute yourself. If you're on a phone, you'll see 3 little dots that will allow you to unmute. Otherwise, you're going to click the microphone on your computer. Kim, there we go.
All right, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. This, after what you just said about God is great, God is almighty. I was sitting here with my hand raised, not sure if I really wanted to speak. And then you said that, and I'm just a testament to how good and great God really is. I don't remember registering for this webinar. I got to the email to it by accident because I was trying to log into my Microsoft account and they had to send me a verify code, and your email popped up, and I opened it, and it was right before it started, and I came here, and when I first started listening to you, you were talking about God's will and things like that, and I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you that I was going to ask in the questions tab, but now that we're chatting, they say God's will be done, but yet we as a human race talk about our free will. Yeah. Well, is our free will to do God's will? And the second thing is, at bedtime when my grandmother and I would say our nightly prayers, it's now lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Yeah. Now, I'm almost 60, right? And we're now learning more about consciousness and soul. But why was my grandmother back in the 60s having me say that prayer about my soul to God?
Okay, so let's see if we can't tie the two questions into a single revelation. First, it's funny that you've asked this, Kim, because just yesterday I was speaking with Kate. She had asked a similar question.
Kate is my grandmother's name. Kate is my grandmother's name.
Well, I was talking.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had to say that.
That's okay. It's kind of fun, the synchronicity of this. Kate is our webmaster. She was on earlier when the talk first started. So how does this reconcile free will? And what does it mean? And we can understand, I think St. Paul himself said that we can see every creature serves. There's nothing created that doesn't serve. And it serves by being a kind of a station in which this reconciliation takes place. So that the vine and the branch, from above to below, all of this is connected in this beautiful, intelligent, living act of love. Call it God if you wish. It's inescapable if you look. No one has to believe in it. You just need to see it. And if you do, then you realize, okay, so everything serves. Well, I wonder if maybe so much of my suffering is because all I do is serve myself. That's all I know to do. That's all I was taught to do. I was taught to pretend. I was taught how to act. But when I look at all that carefully, what I pretend and the way I act is to serve the image I have of myself. And that's no good. How do I know? Because the pain doesn't go away. So then I begin, little by little, as you've indicated, Kim, I start to be interested in, well, what is this free will? If I have free will, I mean, at the simplest level, if I have free will, how come I can't just will my way out of an unwanted moment? And then it dawns on me, well, I've been doing that for the beginning of time. I've been finding a new will based on a new desire to bring about a new outcome because the last one didn't work. Then, well, wait a minute, whose will is that? Well, it belongs to this desire. Then Scripture starts coming alive. You can't serve two masters. You'll love one and despise the other. It's a single nature. And I've been serving that nature without knowing it. So now, my free will is to no longer serve that nature. My will is to negate that relationship, and in the very negation of what was formerly resolving my life, I'm reconciled to the light, the love, and the intelligence of God that has shown me where I had missed the mark. So now I want to serve. And in my service, which is obedience to what I know is true, I'm free. So I wind up serving my own freedom by being obedient to the will of God, not as an idea, God help us, not as some moral code. Obedient to the will of God as I see in myself something struggling with the will of God, because the will of God, the will of the moment of this intelligence, is challenging what I say should happen. That's how free will comes about. It is by giving ourselves up, and in giving ourselves up, we are given everything. I hope that helps, Kim.
Oh, that helps. I mean, my mom is on home hospice and my husband and I are her caretaker. And I retired from the medical industry. I'm all about helping others. My struggle is in those that are self-serving, my family, some of my family, and trying to better that relationship because, my mom is on her spiritual journey out of here and I need to make sure mine is good so that she goes as comfortably as possible,
Yeah.
And I mean, just the things that you said today have just hit every aspect of what I'm going through. Not to mention that my granddaughter, like I think Tony or Jill were talking about their granddaughter,
Yeah.
my granddaughter, who's got a very strained relationship with her mother, is actually coming to stay with me tonight so that we can try to find us coping skills to help her cope with dealing with her mom.
Well, she has.
And it's just,
If I may, Kim, because I've got other people that I need to talk to, but let me just
Yes.
say that your granddaughter is fortunate that you have this love of truth, which includes humility for having seen what you've seen about yourself, to be willing to even try and understand this. So the more you become reconciled to what is true and good in yourself, the more it will effortlessly shine out and help your granddaughter, even if she doesn't know she's getting help. Forgiveness begins with reconciling ourselves to the light that has already forgiven all of this. But we can't forgive ourselves, we can't save ourselves, but we can see that, and in that humiliation, that proper light, begin to enter into this wonderful relationship that you and I are talking about now, Kim. I hope you'll join me again. I talk on Saturdays and Sundays, and we can speak again. Okay, Kim?
I absolutely will, and I will be sending you my $10 donation. And thank you for what you're doing.
You're welcome. Nice to talk to you, Kim. You persist with your wish. Keep working.
Sorry, Kim, I accidentally hit the button when you were in the middle of saying thank you. We appreciate the donation. Okay, I have Heidi here. We'll have Heidi speak, and then we'll get to some written questions unless another hand goes up.
All right.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Heidi.
I wanted to ask you a question, very much about the talk. I've been watching this mind, and seeing how polarized it is. I don't know if it's from conditioning, but it very much thinks in black or white, right or wrong, this or that. And just working to be silent and not share everything that goes on in my mind with my poor dear friends. I just see my mind. It likes to just go. It just likes to talk about. It just likes to talk.
Yeah.
And my question was, how does a person step into a new mind, a new home, a new mansion, instead of just, being so enthralled by this polarization of thought?
It's actually pretty straightforward, Heidi, and I know that you are, in your own way, a spiritual warrior. You want to understand, but you've got a handful. You've got a tiger by the tail. Her name is Heidi. I was thinking while you were talking that the path for everyone is ultimately the same path. It's just drawn up differently because of the nature that is on that path. Heidi, you have to get to the point where you see beyond the shadow of a doubt. You cannot have one thought about what's wrong with you or others that's right. You have to become totally befuddled, and you're never befuddled. You are quietly, silently, in your tears and rage, befuddled, and then something comes in and rescues you, some thought that gathers your attention, something glittering there in that darkness, and Heidi clombs onto it, and then she's off to the races again until she'll become unkind and cruel and self-serving again. And you just need to see that cycle until at last it's not divided up into this and that, but it's a singularity, and its name is Heidi. It's that person. And when you see that, as you do, you won't have to ask, what do I do? You'll know, I have to give up. Heidi's got to go. I can't give her up, but the light that reveals the truth that she's got to go is already helping me be free of her, because I'm not going to, she's not going to get my voice. I'm not going to give her lend my mind to her. But you can't, of your will, you can't do that. You've been trying. You can't. You need to see you can't. That's it. Every bit about a person's work is always right in front of them. This is what's so difficult for us to understand. Freedom is not a time to come. Freedom is not an understanding that will gradually grow in you. Freedom is relationship with reconciliation. Reconciliation is my understanding that either I'm in this moment and receiving what I'm being given by it, or I'm not. And the proof that I'm not receiving what this moment is giving me is I'm trying to give myself something else or get from someone else what I think I have to have. And that's it. And stay in the middle of it, Heidi. Stay in the middle of it. Okay?
Yeah, it sounds like for me, it's just a constant refraining from what makes sense to my mind.
Well,
Just
that's
constantly.
it. But you can't do that until you see Heidi's mind only makes sense until it runs into the fact there's nothing sensible about my suffering or making someone else suffer.
Okay.
All right? I'm with you.
Yep. Thank.
All right.
Okay, we are going to go to a written question here from Susanna. How do I get past this feeling that I'm learning all this so late in life? So much time wasted. I feel immobilized. How do I move forward?
Hi, Susanna. First, just share a little insight, a little good news. We all feel pretty unique. In our own way, the way in which we perceive and draw our character allows us to feel kind of special. It's what that nature wants. But one of the glorious things about persisting with your wish, Susanna, is this gradual recognition that the question you just asked has been asked by every true aspirant since time began. It's a stage. Because something is telling me, geez, guy, look at you. It's too late. Having trouble understanding, my mind doesn't work the way it's supposed to. This conditioning jumps in and captures me. It's too late. And then it says, not only is it too late, but look what you wasted. Because you can see there's something good here. There's work to be done, but you wasted all this time. And then, without understanding it, Suzanne, that nature is baiting you. Would God ever tell anyone, sorry, son, you waited too long? Or is the very revelation that there's something inside of us, and I'm asking you to see this, what in the name of God would tell me that I've wasted my life and it's too late for me to learn? Would love ever say that? Would the light ever cast a person into the darkness and say, see, this is what you deserve because of the way you are? So we need a certain kind of right reasoning, Susanna. And in this instance, the reasoning has to be, first, it's never too late to learn. And because I already know that you know this, when you have that moment of learning something new, you are made new. But this renewal, this rebirth, it first comes in fits and spurts, because I no sooner get this glimpse, wow, that is beautiful, then something comes along and steals it, just like in the parable of the sower. All these seeds, all these truths are cast out. intended to grow humanity. Human beings are seeds. They're not the end product. Because within the sheath of this human body is the potential of something that is eternal, divine. And it's supposed to grow. But this part of us, the husk, how do I say this? The husk of a true seed exists to strengthen the kernel so it can outgrow what contains it. With us, this husk, it seeks to contain it and keep in place everything that ensures the husk goes on. And billions of human beings go to the grave dead husks. But the fact that you can see this, you need to start realizing, well, what's talking to me? Let's just do that as a simple exercise. Years ago, I even had that. Look who's talking. You look who's talking. And instead of listening to it and then letting it tell you whatever it's telling you, you look and see, because you are looking within, what in the name of God would tell me that I've wasted my life when in this moment I'm interested, and in as many moments as possible, in fulfilling the purpose of my life as God would have me understand it. You do that, and you'll see the immobilization is due to the mind resisting its own image. That's just resistance, Susanna. Resistance immobilizes us because it always gives us something to be against and then gives us reasons to go with that justification. So see that this immobilization is just the mind paralyzing itself, because that's all it is. It is the mind giving itself an experience that as it gives it, it doesn't want it. Then you don't have to ask, how do you move forward? Because you see, you were never stopped to begin with. Because nothing stops God's love. Nothing stops the potential and the possibility of our rebirth if we are reconciled to that which is bringing us into that relationship. On we go, Leah.
Okay, we have another question we'll go to from Frida. Then I have Dwight in the queue and another question from Hans. So
We'll hold it at that point for now.
Okay. Very good. Here's the question from Frida. I have a friend who is depressed. She's taken every spiritual course there is. She should have been enlightened a long time ago. Her head is full of everything she has learned from those courses, and her thoughts are so strong. Frida wants to help her, but there's also a part of her that says that it's not my responsibility, and I think that is the same unconsciousness. And she has all the excuses in the world for why she is the way she is and what she has been through. I can learn a lot from this because you can see very clearly how those thoughts work and drive you crazy. But my question is, can I do anything for her?
In the truest sense of the words, physician, heal thyself. I'll tell you something incredibly encouraging, Frida. It is impossible for any aspect of your consciousness to change without, for the cost of that change, the whole of human consciousness changing at the same time. Nothing is disconnected the way this mind disconnects us from others, finding fault with them, and then maybe trying to free them for what they bring up in us that we don't want to experience. So this good, encouraging news is that as a person awakens because they have been reconciled, and if you will, that schism, that division has been healed. And even that's not such a good word. Is a person healed when they're reconciled to what is good? Or does that person realize that what is good was always there, and the healing is that realization? I think the latter is the truth. And as your body and mind and heart increasingly go through what happens when you reconcile yourself, as you are learning to do, to the will of what is true, then you can sit with your friend to a certain extent. And she may go on and on and on. And maybe at a certain point, and it'll be given to you, you might say, you know, I love you and I don't know how else to say this, but you've been complaining about the same thing for 1,000 years. And I think that if we are going to succeed as friends, let alone as aspirants, we need to recognize this and move on. Little things might come to you to say along those lines where you're not judging the person. You're not even trying to correct them. You're just being correctly aligned to what the moment is showing you about yourself, what your friend is bringing up in you, and what's possible if you do, in fact, ask for help in that moment for the right words. Realize that of yourself, you don't know what to say, but it will be given to you, and then you'll learn that too, Frida. You'll learn that too. This is a place of learning, Frida, not winning. And when we realize that real learning is the highest form of, in quotes, winning authority over our own life, then we gain that authority, and then because we are in charge of our own lives, we can begin as a form of emanation to help others see where they are not in charge of their own life. The more your friend spends time around you that you're willing to give, the more she will realize, if you're willing to enact it, what a truly different life is like, because you're no longer going along with hers. That's all I got.
Okay, we're going to unmute you, Dwight. You're unmuted.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Dwight.
Can you hear? I was listening to the lady who was worried about wasting her life or whatever, that all this time had passed and she wasn't working on herself or whatever.
Right.
One of the things that happens for me when I have one of these insights, the idea of time goes away. It feels like you're new.
Yeah.
You're all that nonsense about, I'm too old and all that, you just don't even feel that. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not saying this right.
No, you're saying it as you've experienced it. That's the point.
Yeah.
That when a person is touched by the divine because they have found a way to ask for that reconciliation and then act upon the need, in that moment, time as we know it disappears because now we're no longer apart from life. So in the moment of my rebirth, and that's exactly what it is, time ceases to be an issue because I'm part of what is timeless. And not because I'm trying to be a part of what's timeless, but because I'm reconciled to a light that has shown me first how this nature creates time, spends my life fulfilling it, and then says, look what you did, you wasted your time.
Yes.
Right?
Right. One question is a practical matter. Do I still send my donation to Oregon still?
Oh yeah, yes. The Oregon still exists. I just downsized the whole foundation, but that's not ending. People are there. People are working. So yes, and if you have any questions, Dwight, just give Chris a quick email, and she'll set you right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bud.
Okay. We're going to go with our last question, which came in from Hans, which goes so beautifully with the talk. Recently, I read this quote from you. What you don't want to know about yourself wants to be known, which is why it keeps showing up at your door unannounced.
Yeah.
I get the message. I see it in my life. My understanding of these teachings is that our lower self does not want to be known. It wants to live through us. It wants to stay hidden. And that is why it immediately explains itself so we don't see it. And we just think that's the real me. In this light that wants us to see it and dissolve it through our awareness of it, so that we can become one with the light, Christ, call it what you will. Am I overthinking this? Yeah. One of my lower self's favorite pastime.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hans.
Yeah. Hi, Hans. Yeah. But that's okay. I've told this story before, but it'll help here, and then I'll give you a little insight into what's behind the question. Like yourself, Hans, and again, as I was telling Susanna or Frida, these are absolutely inevitable, inescapable steps along the upper path. As I was trying to help Heidi see, I don't know what else to do with the disturbance that I feel other than try to resolve it. I believe it's up to me to resolve this pain. That's what I was taught. Not to mention that what I was taught came to me from people who never escaped the very thing that they were teaching me by their actions, because they were masters at excusing the fact that everything they resolved never got resolved. It just went on in another form. So that this stage, and it is you gradually, as you are already beginning, or you wouldn't have posed the question you did, you're beginning to see, I'm driving myself nuts. Every door I open opens to a room with 3 more doors in it. And then I choose the best door I can. Some are just dead ends. Some have new doors. I go through those, and there's more doors. That's what the labyrinth represents in the ancient myths and teachings. This inescapable labyrinth, this unconscious mind forever creating new pathways that seem promising, but that are created by the same painful nature. So at some point, Hans, and you're coming there, you start to understand. All of this is a kind of game my mind is playing, and I don't want to play it anymore, but I'm afraid not to. Because I'm afraid not to try to resolve the pain I'm in, the longing I have, the hunger. So with that in mind, you asked, and I go back to get it in this on my board here. My understanding of the teachings is that our lower self does not want to be known, it wants to live through us. You're attributing consciousness and will to something, Hans, that is unconscious and who has no will of its own. I'll say it the other way around. And I just have to trust that you can at least gain some glimmer of understanding from it. If God is good, and God is good, and if God is love, and God is love, not the goodness or the love that you and I seek when we resolve how to escape our pain, but a goodness that has in it and allows for everything that reveals it, and a love that isn't and doesn't create a separate sense of self as someone who is loving or who feels loved, but a love that has no separation in it, then that means that every iteration of that goodness, every iteration of that love, no matter what shape or form it takes as it descends down this ladder of creation, no matter how it looks, it's still light, it's still love, it's still good. But its light, love, and goodness is apart from that which allows it to shine, that which reveals to it the content of itself. If everything is, in fact, of light, of love, of what is good, and God, I hope that you can not go into imagination over those words, then that means everything seeks to return to its essential nature. Einstein said it. The central urge of every atom is to return to its divine source. So that though we do not see it, this nature in its darkness, it too wants to be loved. But it doesn't know what to do when light touches it other than to retreat. But it's not the nature of the darkness to change itself, Hans. It's the nature of the light that reveals what is dark in us and then invites us to let go, to realize in the moment of that disturbance, my job isn't to resolve this suffering. My job is to use the suffering that's revealed. My job is not to resolve the suffering of this darkness. It is to use the suffering as it is revealed so that I can indeed begin to let go, to give myself up to the light that has shown me what I did not know was true before. That's all I can say about that for now.
Okay, very good. Wonderful class today. We're so glad that all of you joined us. And we do have, 4 more opportunities for you to join us this week to continue to keep this teaching alive within you. So the Wisdom School, if you're part of the Wisdom School, that's Monday night at 6 p.m. The students will get together and discuss these teachings. Wednesday, we have Classic Talks. That's at 6 o'clock p.m. And then Friday, another student class that everybody's invited to. Saturday, Insight Timer at 8 p.m., 8 a.m. PT, Pacific time. We're getting all these PTs, ETs together. But go to guyfinley.org/events, and you'll be able to sign up for any of the classes and get the information necessary to continue your work with us and with these teachings. And again, if you want to donate the $10 and get the special gift that we have for you, you can do that at guyfinley.org/special. All right, Kate, you want to come on and end us out, or has Guy already done that?
He might have already done it. So Guy, you can go ahead and hit the button to stop the stream. And I think that's it.